Hey guys, welcome back. Welcome back. I'm Amber with Helping the Good People. How you doing today? So today's going to be a dark screen. I realized a couple days ago I had posted a couple videos as a testimony talking about what I've been working on with my therapist with cognitive behavioral therapy. And then as soon as I posted them, I started thinking, was this appropriate? And I decided the next morning when I woke up after sleeping on it that it wasn't appropriate for YouTube or to share with others. I know that a few people listened to it, and again, my apologies if you did and not understand what I did it for. You know, I'm working through some grief and loss, and it's been hard for me to turn on the camera and talk about it. It's been hard for me to be vulnerable. So instead, I decided to sit down with myself and ask myself a question. And I would like to ask you the same question and maybe ask you to sit down with a notebook and write down the same question and see what you can come up with. So I'm going to just ask you the question and I'll read what I wrote. Now, what I wrote down here is not anything that I read online or in a book. It's more about how I know. The question is, how do you know you're healing? Again, how do you know that you are healing? So when I ask myself this question, I have a storm brewing around me. Rain keeps coming down and then it clears up and goes away. So that's what you just heard, thunder. Yeah. That is a means for washing away all the negative energies outside. So I guess in a way that's confirmation. How do you know you're healing? Like I said, I wrote down my own list based on things that I know for myself that have helped me. But I also wrote this list down based on things that I've been through in the past when I knew that I was healing. So if you guys are struggling with anything right now, I highly recommend you sit down and get out your paper and pencil and write this question down. So what I wrote here, and it's the first thing that I know whenever I'm healing, is you cry about the situation or the person. Now when I say cry, I'm not talking about just crying every once in a while. I'm talking about that deep, deep cry. The one when you're all done. It doesn't matter if it's an hour later or not. You have this sigh of relief. It's kind of like it just got flushed right out of your system. Kind of like outside when it's raining, right? So you cry about the situation or person. The next thing I wrote down here is you begin looking into the situation with acceptance and curiosity. In other words, it's kind of like our thought processes that get going. You know, you really look at it, but not just look at it, but you're curious about the situation itself. Like, what happened, who was involved, you know, what were the things that led up to that situation ending, and, just that whole entire looking at the situation. It doesn't have anything about feelings. It's more about just acceptance, like, hey, this happened to me. The next thing I wrote was, you begin to see the patterns that continuously occurred within the situation, and then you acknowledge what happened. So again, it's about acceptance and being curious about it, but this time around, when you know you're healing, you can actually see the patterns. So whether it was a month, or whether it was 1 year, or how about 10 years down the road. Eventually, when you sit down and look at it with curiosity, you can see a pattern. Exactly, more thunder. So, it's about seeing the patterns, right? Sorry, I got distracted with the lightning and thunder. So you sit down and you see the patterns, right? And you can write down your patterns of what you think you see. The next one I wrote down is you start to do the research into how you are feeling and why. That's a big one for me because sometimes I don't understand what I'm feeling. So whether I'm looking up who I was dealing with, in the past I've dealt with narcissists. So I wanted to understand the other party or why I was feeling this way. And when you start to do your own research into things that you suspect in that pattern, you start to see the little puzzle pieces dropping, right? So you start, why am I mad? You could type that into Google, right? Why am I mad? Something will always come up. And then you can type in, like, why do I feel sad? Why am I depressed? What causes depression? These are kind of questions that you can research, and you'll really start to see that pattern as well as your own behavior and why you feel the way you do, or why those patterns kept repeating. It really does help when you do a little research about how you're feeling and why, okay? The next thing I put was you discover things about yourself and the role that you played. So you can start seeing that pattern, and you can take accountability at that point and say, hey, I now can see how I played a part in whatever the situation or person that you're hurting from or you're healing from, right? Whether that be a job, a relationship, getting in a fight with a family member, it doesn't matter what it is. You can actually start seeing that pattern and the role that you played in it. The next thing I wrote was you take full accountability for your part in the situation, and then you forgive yourself. That is a big one. A lot of us think that we have to just forgive the other party. But what people don't realize is the biggest thing is about forgiving ourselves. And only because even though we see that part that we played in it, we also allowed the situation or the person to keep hurting us. We kept the cycle going. And therefore, we're hard on ourselves. We want to say, well, if I would have done this, if I would have done that, or if I wouldn't have said this, or I wouldn't have said that, or done this. It's that repeated thought process that constantly goes on in your mind. But once you take accountability, then you can learn to forgive yourself. When that is all done, do some research. Learn how to forgive others. And it'll give you some information on there. I've also done many videos on my YouTube channel for this. But then you can learn to forgive them or the situation as a whole. Now for me, I like to write things down. I like to analyze, evaluate, But it's more about how do I forgive them? There are some things in people's minds that is like, this is unforgivable. Or like, how can I have such anger and hatred towards a person? Well, there's your problem. In order to forgive the other person, we have to release that. Once you know that you've released that anger and that hatred to what has happened and who hurt you, the situation that you got yourself into, that is when true forgiveness happens. I thought I forgave before, but then I found out later that I didn't. And sometimes we have to forgive on a daily basis. That saying goes, you can forgive, but you can't forget. And that's not always true. We never forget. But that's when we let the anger subside. We let the hatred subside. We realize that that person is just that way. And we learn to accept it. We must in order to forgive. I really, truly believe that. If we can learn to see the other side, and maybe ask those questions on why do you think they behave that way? Or why is this? Or why is that? And you get curious about it. Then you'll start to understand that that is just them. That it turns out that it might not be you that's the actual problem. Because remember, I've spoken before about how we are mirrors to each other. So sometimes when we are mad at someone else, it's because we're truly mad at ourselves. So learn to forgive them. The next thing I wrote down was you make an active choice to work on yourself through self-care, self-love, diet, exercise, routine. You also reach out for support if you need it. You make an active choice from that point on that, hey, I'm going to start taking care of me, myself, and I. In other words, you try to do your best to forget about the other person, the other situation. For me, I get into things. I'll go for a walk. I pull out a book. I start drawing or I write. I don't really know what else to do. We can distract ourselves all day with TV and YouTube, which I've done too, but it doesn't really help because we're still miserable. So that's why we have to take an active role in our own care. If you don't know what else to do, look up on Google, research your area, see if you can't find a support group. And if you're feeling sad, we'll find a sadness group. I guarantee there's one out there for you. If you're having anger issues, we'll look for an anger management class or a support group for that. If you're struggling to let go of things, I guarantee there is a group out there or a support network or something that you can reach out to, whether it's on the phone or whether it's right in your hometown. And I'm going to throw it out there again. I am here for help and support. I also give out resource help and stuff too. No matter where you are, I'm very good at that. So if you need help, helpingthegoodpeople.tucson@yahoo.com. The next thing I wrote down was you begin to feel like a child again. You start playing more. When I say playing, it's like childlike play. You can play a board game with someone, or chess or checkers, You can get up and dance. You can start singing, turn on some music that you love, and just dance and sing. But take care of yourself and try to let it go. Anytime you have that thought come back up, stop what you're doing. Okay, take a few deep breaths, give yourself 15 minutes if you have to, and then start over again. Just keep dancing, keep moving, keep singing. Take care of yourself and let it go. Okay? It gets easier over time. The next thing I wrote was you begin doing things that you love again. Like me, I put down writing, painting, roller skating, and making new friends. You cherish the now. In other words, we have to remind myself, I have to remind myself, and we do as a whole collective, right? All of us go through this. All of us have some form of trauma or something we're trying to let go of. But we forget about the now. We forget that we're in this moment right now and we're okay. So remind yourself of that. I'm not very good at making new friends. I get nervous. I get anxiety. Even though I have a lot of acquaintances, I stopped what I was doing, I stopped meeting new friends. I stopped going out. Depression does that to people. So try to at least go out and make some new friends. Get over that fear. Cherish the now. Remind yourself to breathe. Be in the moment. Go outside. Listen to the animals. Or like right now, it's raining outside. I could go outside right now and sit there and just all night and just listen to the rain. It's so beautiful. I'm in an area now where it's like really quiet. I have the birds visiting. I have little lizards running by. I have a visit from a cardinal that comes by here. A bluebird. Let's see what else. Hummingbirds. They're just beautiful. And in the mornings, the first thing I do is I make my coffee and I go sit outside for a couple hours. If it were up to me, I would live outside all day with the animals. So anyway, cherish the now, okay? The last thing I wrote down here, now I could keep going, but this was the list that I decided to share with you, is you begin to honor yourself again and the progress that you've made. You begin to honor yourself and the progress you have made. So if you don't think you're making progress, think back to the last time you had a problem. What was it that you were doing at that time? Who did you reach out to? What did you do to get yourself back up off your feet, under your feet? So think about those things. Think about where you're sitting today, listening to this video. I'm hoping that you're still here listening. However, just think about those things, those little baby steps that you've taken for yourself. That's how you know that you're healing, is because you're sitting here today. You made it. You made it on your own. And therefore, I guarantee you're grateful for that. Gratitude is the best attitude. Don't forget that. Gratitude is the best attitude. So if you feel like you're lost, you feel like your whole life is over, you feel like you're never going to be loved again, or you feel lost and broken down like you don't see a way out, sit down, write this question down. And you can even do the bullet points and work the process. But I guarantee at the end of it, you will be able to have at least 10 things that you're grateful for. Give yourself a pat on the back. Keep doing you. And don't forget who you are. And don't forget how many people out there need you and how many people love you. Sometimes we forget that. We feel so alone in the world. Or so broken down because of someone or something that has hurt us. But there is hope. There's always hope. And like me, when I get down and about or I want to give up, I start praying. Some people believe in God, some people don't believe in God, some believe in Buddhism. Whatever your belief is, I know there's someone out there that you talk to in your mind. When you're down, when you're driving in your car and you're wanting to yell at someone, I guarantee there's someone that you pray to. Whomever that is, wherever you are, pray. Pray, 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 and keep praying until you feel better. Breathe through it. Remind yourself of your progress and keep pushing forward. That is my tips for how I know that I'm healing. These are things that I've used as tools for myself, and that is how I realized the other day that, hey, I've come a long way in the last 30 days. I was involved in a relationship for 8 years, and there was a lot of lying and cheating and manipulation and feeling like I was unworthy, and then when you confront the situation, the tables got turned, and then all of a sudden you're a monster, and you're damaged goods, and you're not going to ever make it. You're going to be homeless. You're a horrible mother. I mean, these are things that were said to me. And at first I wanted to believe it, only because I'd put up with it so long. But you know what? I finally looked into the situation. I accepted it with curiosity. I acknowledged the patterns and saw the cycle. But I also learned something about myself, was that I allowed it to continue. I let it keep going. I kept going back. No matter how broken down I was feeling, I had to remind myself, I've been in worse situations before. I've been kicked out of places before. But you know what? I've always had my own place. I've always taken care of my family. I've always paid my bills. And I've been helping people for the last 8 years just because I didn't want to see other people suffer. I wanted to make a difference and be a voice. So make an active choice to work on yourself. You will start feeling like a child again, and you will begin doing things that you love. Tell your story. Write your poem. Sing your song. Dance your blues away. Paint your blues away. Because that is the only thing I know to do to heal. I'll leave it here. Gratitude is the best attitude, wouldn't you say? Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share if you dare. This is a random video. I don't edit anything. I just turn on the camera and talk. Have a good day.